rest of the 13-minute news hour. Bobby, Eberle, great to have you both on. Luke, I'll start with you. This is a pretty long article, but it's quite the bombshell. You know, it basically goes in to say they've been covering up for him since he got into office. They were covering for him during this entire Afghanistan withdrawal, and they talk about all the times in his presidency that he really was not present at all. This is really concerning, and it's really disappointing that Democrats put power over the American people.
I think if the mainstream media had an ounce of integrity, the headline would just say they lied, because the White House did lie to us over and over and over again. This is not what our founders intended. This is not supposed to be some oligarchy of staff members appointed by senior staff officials in the White House running our government. You know, if Joe Biden had come out and said, guys, I'm experiencing a mental decline, here's exactly what's happening, or even just I'm totally fine, but these are the medical issues I'm dealing with, I think the American people would have respected a whole lot more. I understand that's not how the presidency generally operates, but we just need some honesty. They have kept so much from us. Kamala Harris lied over and over, saying Joe Biden was totally fine. They're keeping this information about the drones from us, never planned to tell us about the Chinese spy balloon. This is a pattern of dishonesty from the administration. Our founding fathers thought some of the greatest threats to our country would come from entangling alliances. Who knew with Joe Biden it might just be jet lag?
You know, Bobby, one line that stood out to me was that we're talking about Biden's meetings being canceled, and even they provided an example of a national security official telling another White House aide, quote, he has good days and bad days, and today was a bad day, so we're going to address this tomorrow. We're talking about national security. This was in Biden's first year in office.
Right. Yeah. And that's what's important, because people tend to focus on this decline of Joe Biden as if it was more of a recent thing. You know, he couldn't run for re-election. Kamala Harris was installed because of the decline in his performance in the debate. But this was from day one. That's why they had the basement strategy in 2020 to keep him hidden, because they already knew that he was declining. And I mean, when you're talking foreign policy and defense and national security, you can't take an off day. You can't have a bad day and a good day, because that could result in some really bad policy. But it underlies this deep state, this government that doesn't represent the people, power over the people, and seeing this, realizing it. You know, I agree. The headline should be they lied, and we really get to the bottom of this and have some accountability in this administration.
You know, it really is concerning when you see that and you see them say he had good days and bad days, Luke, because I think back to September 11th, 2001, and the day that our current president at the time, George W. Bush, had that very, very long day in trying to handle this entire terrorist situation. What happens if our current commander-in-chief is having a bad day when another September 11th happens?
Well, it's a very fair question. It's one I shudder to answer, because I would consider a very bad day for the Biden administration to be the withdrawal from Afghanistan. And when you have that, you have 13 American service members that do not come back from overseas. You can look at pattern after pattern of that. And the American people caught on to this pretty early, but the Democrats tried to spin it as a right-wing talking point. And that was disingenuous, because our adversaries overseas saw this was happening as well. When we had that abysmal withdrawal from Afghanistan, it signaled to the rest of the world that America was no longer the leader of the entire nation, or excuse me, on the entire world front when it comes to a strong national security posturing. It meant that they could also just run roughshod over whatever they wanted to over the rest of the world. You saw Hamas pouring into Israel. You saw Russia pouring into Ukraine. That would not have happened under strong leadership from the United States to be able to interfere with those plans, or even just pick up the phone and make a call and say, you know what, we're going to do this, this, and this if you do this. Because the rest of the world saw that we were a weaker nation because of how Joe Biden was responding, they acted accordingly. So you could make an argument that thousands and thousands of people have died across the world because of the lack of cognitive functioning from our White House.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, Bobby, this reminds me, and I'm a nerd about this, I'll admit it, but this reminds me of what was going on under Woodrow Wilson back in the early 1900s. And Congress basically created the 25th Amendment to take away the possibility that a spouse could literally hide a diminished president from the American people. And here we have what seems to be another case of it. Do you think Congress does something about it?
Well, I mean, they should. The thing is that no one has political courage these days. And I mean, over the last 4 years, you've heard rumors, you know, maybe 25th Amendment, it was thrown out there. But when did we really hear about that? The only time we really heard about it is Nancy Pelosi using it as leverage. You know, hey, Biden, we need to get you out of there, not because he's declining so much, but because they were losing the election and they threatened the 25th Amendment on him. That's not the way you use the 25th Amendment. You use it so that you could have that leadership on the world stage, that you have competency in the government. And the thing is, what drives the American people so crazy is not just the cover-up. It's the arrogance of people like Karine Jean-Pierre lecturing reporters and lecturing the American people on how good Joe Biden was. You know, he had more energy than he does more in a day than I can do in a week and things like that. Knowing it was patently false, a lie, that's what we can't stand. And that's what needs to be fixed up. Maybe we look at this a little closer next time if we're in the same situation.
And I think that's why people voted the way they did on November 5th.
Absolutely.
They were very done with being lied to for the last 4 years by this administration. All right, Luke, Bobby, thank you guys so much. And if we don't see you guys, have a very Merry Christmas.
You too.
Merry Christmas
Thank you.
to you.
See you.
All right, friends, thanks again for tuning in. I really appreciate it. And before you go, please hit that subscribe button above. Once you do, tell your friends, share it, spread the word about the 13-minute news hour so we can keep growing. And for more great content, check out these videos right here, and I'll see you next time.